In this video, we're going to talk about the main mistakes that you're probably making with any chest supported row. Now, this applies to all chest supported rows, whether it be on a machine like this Atlantis piece, any other chest supported row machine, any dumbbell chest supported row, cable chest supported row, right? All the principles apply to all of these things. So the main mistake, and this will happen in a bunch of different ways, is not using the chest support. Now, it sounds a little bit silly, but the whole purpose of the chest support or just using a chest supported row is so that we don't have any limitation in the spinal position, limiting the amount of output that we create in a rowing motion. Okay, so a couple major mistakes that will be made. The first is setting up with the seat too high. Okay, so if I set up with the seat too high and I go to row and I'm going through these rows, this is pretty good. I'm kind of, stuck to the pad. But the problem with this is that my chest, my sternum specifically, is over the height of the pad, meaning that the pad is too low. It's on the lower ribs. And any time that you have a pad on the lower portions of the ribs, which are the most flexible ribs, are the ones that allow us to actually inhale and exhale large volumes of air, those ones get really, really smushed pretty uncomfortably, and it doesn't end up feeling too great for most people. So first things first is that you want to have the chest support in a place that's a little bit higher up on the sternum. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can do it by lowering the seat and then sort of just jamming your sternum into the seat that way. Or if the seat doesn't go low enough for whatever reason, what you can do, and it might look kind of silly if the seat is sort of stuck a little bit higher, is you can simply change the relative angle that you're sitting at so that you're leaned a little bit more forward. And although that will change the loading angle of the arm, it's better to have the chest support and to use it than to have the most specific arm path possible, at least in my opinion. So that's mistake number one, is the seat not being at an appropriate height. Mistake number two would be that the seat maybe is at an appropriate height, but what happens kind of as people go through the row is they're stuck to the chest pad and then they pull back and they actually pull away from the chest pad, right? And so they're basically doing not only a row, right? They're not only going through this motion, but as they lean back, right, they're extending the spine, flexing the spine, extending the spine, flexing the spine. And what that's going to do is it's likely going to, again, take away from the amount of output that's not only specific to the rowing tissues that you're trying to recruit, but also just the output in general from the standpoint of having energy leaks in the exercise and not having as much load applied to those specific tissues throughout the entirety of the set, right? We want to be efficient with our sets. We don't want a bunch of sets that are sort of lackluster from the standpoint of actually fatiguing the tissues that we're trying to. Okay, so first, again, mistake, seat is too high, lower ribs are on the chest pad. Second mistake is maybe the chest pad is in a good position to begin with, but we're peeling away from it or we're folding over top of it, right? Just basically over using spinal motion and not actually being stuck to the pad in a way that's useful. And then the last and final mistake is using both of those things appropriately, right? So seat height, chest pad is stuck here, but just having the chest support too close or too far from the actual implement that we're trying to grab to where we're losing bits of range of motion and we're losing tension in specific portions of the range relative to what we're trying to do. So as a for instance, if I move the seat too far forward, right, I can grab the handles really easily, but now when I come to this fully lengthened position, they just hit the end range early, and now I just, it's just effectively like I had zero load here. So I either have to stop early and not getting to that lengthened position effectively, or I just have to get to that position and have zero tension there. No good. Or in another instance, you have it way too far back, right, and we're like 1,000 feet away here, and I'm glued to this chest support, but now it's like, I can't reach, so I have to kind of start here and then peel back into it, which can work for some people, but I prefer not to kind of have to go through the hassle of that, and it also potentially can change the mechanics of the machine as far as how the machine is actually interacting with you. A lot of chest supports, just as an aside, do not have these beautiful free motion handles, so what I recommend is if you have one that's just fixed handles this way or fixed handles this way, is looping a free motion handle like a D handle or an angles 90 handle just over top of that so that you have that option to free move. So for me personally, I find a middle ground. 6 I know is my favorite setting on this. I lean a little bit forward into it, right, so I can, hopefully I'm not smushing the mic here, so I can basically lean my sternum into it strong, and then I have basically a little wiggle room, right, where toward the end I'm still loaded and I can get back into that shore position nice and easily. And so keep in mind that these are rows, right, but this applies to pull downs where you have a chest support, which there aren't a ton of great chest supported pull down machines. There are a few, and if you have those few you, you're super lucky. Definitely use the chest support as much as you can if it's there. But hopefully this was a helpful sort of guide or walkthrough of the chest supported row. And in summary, figures, use the chest support.